All right, the weather's cooling down a little bit. I'm able to get a little bit more done on the truck. My daughter's car is running good. My wife's car is running good. I'm not getting pulled away for other stuff. So this is the first chance I've had to really work on Roscoe much in the last couple months. I got it up on jack stands. I'm gonna pull the tires off. I got to get some tires on. I got replacement parts to weld in the back of the cab where I've got some rust through, and I've got to wheel the truck to the garage because I don't have 220 in the shop here yet. But as I was pulling this apart, I was looking at the front end, kind of assessing if I need to rebuild the front end or not. Look at the tires moving in relation to each other. Now, fortunately, the engine's not in here right now, so you can see that. But you can see the other tire. When I turn like this, it follows, but it also has a little bit of a lag and some slop. So whenever you go to find stuff like this, you have to get up here and look. You can see the center link there, and the pitman arm and the idler arm. You can see that center link kick right here. Whenever I wiggle this, you can see it kick right there. You can see the idler arm is real bad. So basically, from one end to the other, that entire center link and tie rod ends and idler and pitman arm are junk. I'm gonna have to replace those. So I'm looking at a full rebuild on the suspension before I put this on the road. I wouldn't even want to test drive it with it this sloppy. I mean, that's dangerous. So that's how you assess this stuff. So now that I got the wheels off, I want to talk to you a little bit about using every trick in the book. And that's kind of the difference between a young technician and an old technician. The older you are, the more tricks you know. And I had to break out quite a few on this. Roscoe has a dual rear wheel front wheel setup. It's got the extended rotors to run wider wheels if you got a dually rear end. The previous owner was in the middle of doing the suspension swap to make it into a dual rear wheel when the transmission conked out and he parked it in his field. I'm going to replace these rotors with a single front wheel setup. I just want to run single wheels on it. I don't want the expense of having to run 6 tires and gas mileage and all that. But I was taking this apart, and this wheel did not want to come off. I couldn't get the lug nuts loose. I sprayed them down with PB Blaster. I hit them with my impact wrench. I've got a pretty heavy duty, it's an older impact wrench, but it hits pretty hard. It couldn't touch them. And so my pry bar wasn't long enough to lock the wheels in place. So used to have a longer pry bar, lost it years ago, and I'd never needed it since. I never bought another one. First trick, pull out a piece of angle iron and wedged it in there to get the lug nuts loose. Had to use my breakover bar, which I didn't bring out here. I'd already put it up. I went to bust the lug nuts loose, and I couldn't get enough oomph on the breakover bar to break it loose. I was having to bounce it to break loose, and every time I bounced it, then my angle iron would pop loose. So I went and got a cheater pipe and stuck it on the end of the breakover bar. The trick to that is, having that longer leverage, you can put a smoother push on it to break lug nuts loose. You don't have to bounce it to get them loose. Got the lug nuts broken loose and zipped them off with the gun, and the wheel wouldn't come off. It was stuck. I've got my mini sledge out, and I was pounding all around the wheel and pounding on the tire, because believe it or not, if you hit the tire, that helps. It gives you more leverage on the wheel to break it loose. Wasn't coming loose. And finally, I had to break out the big mamma jamma. I hooked my slide hammer through the wheel. Careful not to hook the rotor there. Hook the wheel. 2 strikes with this, the wheel popped free. Normally if you were stuck on the side of the road and all you had was a 4-way, and you jacked this up and tried to pull that wheel off, you'd be out of luck. It took a lot of tricks. It took me about an hour to get all 4 wheels off this truck. Sometimes you're going to have to think outside the box, come up with some creative ways, and the more of these tips you have stashed in your brain, the more chances you have of success. I've known guys who would run into stuff like this and have to have somebody bail them out because they didn't know what to do. When I was a young technician, that's how I was. I had to ask somebody what to do. And the older guys I worked with said, you need to figure that out for yourself. You need to start, figuring these tricks out. And after a while, experimenting, trying stuff, I learned that duct tape doesn't work as a strap wrench, some other things like that, but you learn what works and what doesn't. And that's a knowledge you need to get in your head if you're going to push through. When you will run into stuff like this. I don't know if I've got the Midas touch of being a mechanic. Every job I've ever done has had problems like this. I don't ever have easy jobs that, somebody on YouTube says you do it this way, zip, 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 it's done. And I'm exaggerating a little bit. There are times that my jobs go easy, but more than half the time, I've got difficult issues in what I'm wrenching on. I don't know why, but you learn real fast how to come up with alternate means of success if you're having to deal with problems like this all the time. So stash away alternative methods of getting the job done. Stash them away. And get the heavy duty tools for pulling yourself out of an emergency. That was my very first slide hammer I ever bought. I went to Steve's Wholesale here in town, Steve's Wholesale Tools, and it's apparently a body shop slide hammer. And it's about twice the size of a normal slide hammer. And you know what? It works. And it was cheaper than anything else too. That was the main reason I bought it. So invest in the right tools and invest in the knowledge of how to get around these hurdles. So here's an interesting mystery. I picked up this 4L80E to put into Roscoe, which originally had a TH400 in it. And I need a yoke for it. And supposedly, the yoke for a TH400 will fit this. And if this had a TH400 in it, this should be a TH400 yoke. But it's not. It's significantly smaller. I have this yoke from a big block Cadillac. I got rid of the car, but I still had the yoke laying around because it didn't quite work in it. It goes in, fits perfect. The only thing that worries me about it is the thickness of those ears compared to the, truck ears. So, more to come. I'll see if this will work or not. But if that'll work on this drive shaft, that would be an easy solution. The question is, how much different length is the 4L80E from the TH400? Am I going to have to shorten this drive shaft? And if so, I don't want to install this yet. I'll have it installed whenever I have the drive shaft done, because I won't shorten it. I'll take it to Blumenthal's and have them do it. So